Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This will be my full Marvel She-Hulk episode 6 video. There were a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references and a big teaser at the end of the episode, so I'll explain what's going on. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all of the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get them. Careful for spoilers from the episode if you haven't seen it yet. We'll work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs and WTF moments as we go along, starting with the episode title. It was Just Jen, a reference to her friend asking her to come to her wedding as Just Jen, not as She-Hulk. It's also a bit of a call out on them not paying off the Daredevil teaser from the end of episode 5. Like, it's Just Jen this week, which she references in the episode breaking the fourth wall, talking to the audience, us, saying, bet you thought this was pretty inconvenient, kind of hurting the momentum of the series. Kind of in the same way that weddings like this, situations like this, are very inconvenient in real life. So either they wind up paying off the Daredevil episode in next week's episode, or because they have this big Hulk King reference at the end of the episode, they directly follow up with that and Daredevil is later in the season. We'll find out pretty soon. I'll explain what's going on with that teaser at the end of the episode because it seems like it's a combination of a Hulkling Easter egg, like Hulkling from the Young Avengers comics, and because of the Intelligentsia website, which is like a big TMZ parody. The whole intelligence reference is a reference to the leader, the Samuel Stearns character, who is the main villain of Captain America 4, New World Order. It sounds like Marvel has big Hulk plans in Marvel Phase 5 between what's happening with Captain America 4, the Thunderbolts movie, in like a World War Hulk-style plot. So I'll explain that later in the video when we get to that part of the episode, but I think that's probably what's going on. Like the leader's whole thing during the Incredible Hulk movie, which they made references to during the episode, like a lot of Incredible Hulk references, was getting Hulk's blood, and now someone wants to get Jen's She-Hulk blood. That person seems like the leader. But the actual episode starts with that awkward wedding invitation from her friend to be a bridesmaid with a joke about how lame it could be. Like, it's the lamest wedding invite you could possibly imagine. Most inconvenient wedding invite also, which she calls out in that fourth wall break. Nikki references the events of episode 5 with her getting the super suit that we'll see later in the season, but she says that she doesn't want to wear it, she's not going to need it. Obviously she will need it because we literally see her wearing it in the trailers, fighting with Daredevil and then working with Daredevil. It's meant to be a comic book accurate version of her suit from the She-Hulk comics, but they remind you that it was one of several different outfits that the designer gave her. Like, she has a bunch of regular outfits like suits and other dresses that she can wear in her normal daily life, which she takes for a test drive at the wedding with the regular looking dress. They try to give her this Shulky nickname, but I actually do not like it that much, so I am not going to call her Shulky. You're free to if you want to, though. There's a couple moments in the episode, and they've done it in previous episodes too, where a lot of the jokes are referencing things that people are doing in real life, like the trolls that are going after She-Hulk in real life. The whole joke about people having weddings on Thursdays isn't a fourth wall break, but it's a reference to the She-Hulk episodes airing on Thursdays on Disney+. Like, isn't it weird that it's on Thursdays? What's the matter with Fridays or the weekends? We find out her cousin Ched is the DJ for the wedding. Later in the end credit scene with like the new scenes that they work into all the episodes, you actually see Ched getting it on with the bride in the photo booth, so go Ched. We also find out his DJ name that he's using is the Incredible Hulk, and he wears a Bruce Banner Incredible Hulk t-shirt. Jen also says that her friend knows her entire family, so that means that her friend knows all about the Bruce Banner Hulk. Also, people didn't know that she was related to Bruce Banner before this because she's been in the news so much. Nobody is probably surprised that her family has Hulk stuff going on with it. The other joke with her growing apart from her friend in the past, like they haven't talked in a long time, is that her friend invited her to be a bridesmaid just because she wanted her help, not because she actually cared about Jen, and because she seems like one of those basic bitches that just loves the attention. Like, she really gets off on having Titania there. But then when Jen does show up as She-Hulk, she gets really pissed. Like, oh, you're stealing attention from me. So she's meant to be like the worst bridezilla you've ever seen. You could also make a Game of Thrones wedding reference too, although this wedding not quite as entertaining as the House of the Dragon wedding we just had. Like, we just had the Green wedding. I literally just posted a video for it a little while ago. A little more eventful than the wedding in the MCU here, but that's just the way it goes inside the Game of Thrones universe. The big superhero divorce case that she left Mallory with is for Mr. Immortal from the comics. He's part of the Great Lakes Avengers. Super deep cut. Some of you may have read those Great Lakes Avengers comics. His real name is Craig Hollis, but they changed his backstory a little bit for the MCU, saying that he took up a bunch of fake identities when he killed himself and then resurrected. So he's been alive for a much longer period in the MCU, married to a bunch of different women, and they play it up for the comedy of it all, like him killing himself to get out of all the marriages because he hates conflict so much. In the comics, Mr. Immortal is kind of like an X-Men Easter egg. They call him Homo Superior, like the final evolution of what humanity will eventually become. Mutants are meant to be like the next step, so Homo Superior, Mr. Immortal, is like the next step after mutants. In the comics, the whole comedy of his character is just like the ridiculous chances that he'll take, knowing full well that he'll instantly resurrect, so he can just risk his life no matter what, it's no big deal. The only difference is that every time he does kill himself, he feels the pain like a normal person, the same way that Wolverine feels the pain every time he pops his claws. One of the twists of his powers, though, is that if he sustains a non-lethal injury, he'll heal at a normal human rate. He only insta-heals from full death, so he could resurrect from an Infinity Gauntlet snap if he was snapped during Avengers Infinity War, or like a full power blast from it, but if Thanos wrecked his arm, like he just broke his arm, it would take him forever to heal it. He makes a joke about the marriages that he was in bleeding him dry, like metaphorically fatal. He says he's tried marriage several times, implying that because of the way his powers work, because of how long he's been alive, he's technically been married more times than anyone else on the planet. I would say that Kang might give him a run for his money, but technically Kang hasn't been married that many times. He's had love interests, like Ravonna Renslayer is Kang's love interest in the comics, but he hasn't been married that many times. In the way he explains it, he uses the twist behind the way his powers work and the way that the law is worded to get out of his marriages by killing himself and then resurrecting and adopting a new fake identity. I think because of the whole fake identity thing, though, that's why it doesn't stick and why he's forced to make the settlement. When he shows them his powers by jumping out the window and resurrecting on the car, zoom and enhance, there's a QR code that you can scan to get another free She-Hulk comic book. They've been doing that in pretty much all the episodes. When She-Hulk arrives at the wedding, she breaks the fourth wall again to complain about how this was one of the few times she did want to show up as She-Hulk, because all her old friends, all these people, think that she's amazing now, and she used to be very unpopular. And they make a reference to the title where her friend tells her to come just as Jen, like just Jen. They make a Twilight reference at her wedding rehearsal, Team Jacob and Team Edward, saying that she's dated both of the actors, Taylor Lautner and Robert Pattinson, in the MCU before this. So both of those actors are now canon to the MCU, as is the Twilight franchise. And it's not a fourth wall break, but she does have a big reaction when Titania arrives, and they explain the whole twist with her friend wanting as many famous people there as possible, being a big fan of Titania's. Her friend also references the events of the previous episode with all the different quote-unquote businesses that Titania has, and that was the whole reason why Jen had to sue her, to get her to stop using the She-Hulk name. The whole thing with the Josh character that she meets, I think is just meant to be like a totally normal dude in stark contrast to all the weirdos that she dated in the previous episodes. Because at the end of the episode, they also have a reference to the fries, which they referenced during her dates, like, should we get these fries to go? Only this time, they play it as like a really nice moment, like she's enjoying it, and Josh likes her for Jen instead of just for She-Hulk. I think we saw some trailer footage with the two of them together in a future episode, so they like probably continue with whatever relationship is developing here. We meet all of Mr. Immortal's former wives who are still alive, like he references his first wife, who seems like she's long since dead. All of them are different ages just because his powers have kept him alive for so long, like thus the wife from a long time ago that left him a whole bunch of gold. One of them even had a biological kid with him, so that kid might also have powers. We also find out he spent one of his marriages as a gay man, so I guess that makes him bi, technically. And the whole joke here is that he just hates conflict, so each time things became too inconvenient for him, he just bailed on the relationship by killing himself. Because even though he bailed on a bunch of debt in one of his marriages, technically he has this giant settlement money, like all this gold, all the Apple shares, like a bunch of other stuff. It sounds like he's actually pretty rich, so there's no reason for him to avoid debt. They make the first reference to the Intelligentsia website, which is a parody of TMZ in the MCU, but they're playing it up like a MCU gossip site, just about superheroes, and there's all these trolls going after She-Hulk, but secretly it seems like a front for what's happening at the end of the episode and this researcher trying to steal her blood. Like I said, I think the Intelligentsia reference is to intelligence, to the leader's intelligence, and it might actually be the leader character who's behind all this. Then I think we have another MCU first. They make a Nintendo Switch reference. This could also be product placement too. Like Nintendo could have just bought advertising in the She-Hulk series and they could just be working it in this way. We have seen Fortnite in the MCU, so like video games do exist in the MCU, but this is the first time I think we've ever seen Nintendo or Switch referenced in the MCU. Also Mario Kart reference, like they say that people have been playing Mario Kart, so she has to iron all their shirts now. Like I said, you can kind of think of this as like a Bridezilla, Cinderella type of reference, like how much crap can we put on Jen before she completely breaks and hulks out? Just like in the Cinderella story, she's put upon by her evil stepsisters and then transforms into this upgraded version of herself, like Jen transforms into She-Hulk. They also reference ESPN, which I think they've done in the MCU before though. They pay off the joke about the mystery groomsman, Jonathan, that she'd been paired with, who's just her friend's dog, which they also reference at the end of the episode too in a bunch of pictures. The joke about having to resuscitate him and all the health problems that the dog has is about toy dogs in general. Like, a lot of those types of breeds of dogs have a lot of actual genetic problems just because of the way that they're bred. Then when Mr. Immortal is offering his wives the settlement, he almost tries to kill himself again because he doesn't want to make eye contact with one of his wives. Like, that's how much he hates actual conflict. They also pay that off at the end of the episode too, where you actually see him doing it and they're holding up the counter to 20 seconds. When they're talking about the settlement and they reference Lake Lawn Mausoleum, that's a reference to Mr. Immortal's Great Lakes Avengers in the comics. She-Hulk has another dance montage. This time she doesn't twerk, like she just dances to Annie Lennox, but then she drunk dials Bruce Banner Hulk, who hasn't come back from Sakaar yet, but this is meant to foreshadow him actually coming back, like Bruce Banner Hulk will be in a future episode. So hopefully he will talk about what he's been doing off-planet. And they had this whole joke about her getting super drunk because she's in Jennifer Walters' form, and apparently the gamma doesn't burn off her alcohol poisoning, making her boot eventually, getting into the big fight with Titania, finally paying that off, proving her right. She really did come to trying to destroy her. But the way they play it off, she winds up humiliating herself, like she takes her down easily, and then winds up cracking her teeth, which they also pay off in the end credit scene with her fixing the teeth at the dentist. She also weirdly steals the wedding cake on her way out, like, I'm taking this. Because she also has those superpowers, she's pretty huge, she also probably burns a bunch of calories. This is meant to show you that the Titania thing will continue into future episodes, like they'll continue to battle it out in future episodes. But she doesn't seem like she's connected directly to the plot of the person trying to steal her blood. So they make another Hulk reference on the Intelligentsia website. The code name is Hulk King. That's a reference to King Hulk in the comics, which is actually a spin on the Hulkling character, who's really a Skrull. He's like the emperor of the Skrull race from the Young Avengers comics, but he's a Skrull. That's the whole thing. That's why he's green. He doesn't actually have gamma powers. His real Skrull name is Doric. Part of this could be a backdoor secret invasion Easter egg because of what's happening with the Skrulls during that series in Nick Fury. But like I said, this seems closer to what was happening with the Samuel Stearns leader character and the whole intelligence reference in the Intelligentsia name. As the person is looking in the digital readout of her biology and they're preparing the samples to get her blood using more upgraded hardcore methods. So like I said, I don't know if episode 7 next week is going to directly pay off this teaser, or if they're going to follow up on the Daredevil teaser in episode 5, or if it's going to be the same thing, like those two plots will wind up being paid off in the same episode. I'm assuming them paying off this plot will be like the last couple of episodes though. Like whoever this is will wind up being the main villain of the series. You can let me know in the comments who you think this is, like is it going to be the leader or is it going to be someone else? We get a little teaser for Mallory Book's backstory. She talks a little bit about herself, but then kind of stops short, so they'll probably reveal the rest of that in a future episode. The other thing that's going on with the Intelligentsia website is that a lot of these memes and the hate posted on She-Hulk, the trolling, is actually a parody of what's happening in real life. Like a lot of people in real life are trolling She-Hulk. So the show has done this in previous episodes where they're kind of calling out the trolls in real life throughout the show. Nikki's hashtag Friends with Bros is a Science Bros reference. And then they just have a joke about her having zero self-control, like, we're not going to tell Jen about any of this stuff, which she immediately does. Like, oh yeah, we said we weren't going to do that, but I did it anyway. There is no episode 6 post-credit scene, like no traditional post-credit scene, just like episode 5. But just like episode 5, they had additional Easter eggs in the end credits, like the actual credits of the episode. Those tend to change a little bit in every single episode, even if there isn't like a regular post-credit scene. Most of the new scenes are of the photo booth, which they reference in the wedding. With her and Josh, Ched, then Ched also hooking up with the bride, go Ched, there's pictures of her dog, the red-haired person is meant to be Titania, which they also show right after this, getting her teeth fixed at the dentist. Then Mr. Immortal serving out his settlement of the eye contact with one of his wives for 20 seconds. So like I said, they could follow up with the Daredevil episode next week, or they could follow up with the Blood storyline. You can let me know in the comments what you think they're going to pay off, or it'll be like a completely different episode. But I think the whole joke with this wedding episode is that it was meant to be like a one-off interruption to that overarching storyline, so we will pick up with like the main plot in the next episode. Call yourself a really good lawyer in the MCU. My full She-Hulk episode 7 video will post next week just like normal. I have a bunch of stuff coming up. My full House of the Dragon episode 6 video will post on Sunday. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. Everyone click here for my brand new House of the Dragon Dance of the Dragon video, and click here for my House of the Dragon episode 6 trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.